Namaste and welcome to this 10 p.m. show today. And today, sponsored by Mission Kali, we are beginning a series on what is called Understanding Christian Conversion Syndrome. And to set the ball rolling, we've got Maya Ram from the USA. Welcome, Maya ji. Let me introduce Maya ji to all of you. She is a very prominent Mission Kali volunteer. Mission Kali is an institution that confronts, you can say, or opposes the conversion that is practiced by the Christians so openly and so wantonly in India. And she happens to be the president of Mission Kali in the USA, and she is an ex-Christian. Welcome, Maya ji. How are you?
Namaskar, Sanjay ji. Thank you for having me on. I am doing well.
And let me try and understand. I mean, I've seen some of your videos, and you talk about Christianity being a cult, and that helps you define some of the practices, especially some of the more predatory practices of the Christianity. So, can you set out the framework for us?
So I hold with yes, I have said before that Christianity can be considered a cult. I should lay out what is a cult. A cult is commonly defined as an organization that is centered around one figurehead or one ideology, and you are supposed to accept it unquestioningly, meaning you cannot. It is not democratic. And, oftentimes it can be a religious figurehead. With Christianity, it would be Jesus. There are offshoots of Christianity where there are prominent figureheads who are considered as big as Jesus. Like, for example, Jehovah's Witnesses, they are considered a cult, and it's centered around the man who formed it. And also the Mormons, Latter-day Saints, it's centered around the man who formed that sect, that cult. And but by and large, Christianity can also be considered a cult because it centers around one man, Jesus Christ. Some characteristics of cults, if I may refer to my notes, they include excessive, zealous, and unquestioning commitment to the leader regarding, the belief system propagated, ideology, and practices, as they consider that the truth, the absolute truth, and nothing but the truth. Questioning, doubt, and dissent are punished and just discouraged altogether. Mind-altering practices is a common practice of cults. Like speaking in tongues. Many of you might have seen videos of people speaking in tongues or acting crazy, like they're flailing about on the stage every time the pastor touches them. That can be considered mind-altering practice. And also denunciation sessions, like a convert is encouraged to completely denunciate all that they believed in, all of their family and their friends in regular sessions. And also the use of excess work, like a new initiate into a cult will be forced to do manual labor, tedious work, just overworked to the point where they can't think anymore about what they are doing. They are just they're just busy with work and getting overly tired. There's also an elitist component to cults. They believe that they are special, that they have the one truth, and that all others are wayward, and they do not have the truth. They are in delusion, and they believe that their leader is the leader, and the members are special because of that. And that is how Christianity can be considered a cult. There are other common characteristics of cults, including Christianity. There's this preoccupation to bring in new members, which is why we see a lot of aggressive missionary activity in India, especially. And they're also preoccupied with making money. Along with this preoccupation of mass converting, they want to bring in the money. in Christianity, there's this demand from members, new and established, to tied to their church 10% of their income. They take that seriously. They don't just get money that way, but they also get donations, or they might get even government money. There's also that polarized us versus them mentality. So with Christianity, they believe that because they have that elitist mentality, that they have the truth and only that, and only the truth. And as a result, they also believe that all other groups are not only considered deluded in, living in lies, but also their enemy, so to speak. It's not something that many of your viewers may or may not know that about Christianity, because it's not as aggressive as Islam. I think there's a lot of focus on the Islamic aggression carried out against Hindus and other non-Muslims, but it's present in Christianity as well. And there's also this mentality that because all these groups are the enemy, we have the truth. We should do everything in our power and justify the means in propagating this ideology. And we see that with Christian missionaries as well. There's also, any time that there's any hint of dissent, or if someone questions the unethical practices of leadership, they're made to feel, ashamed or guilty for going against them. So that's another way of controlling of members. And also, there's absolute subservience to that figurehead. And many times we hear stories of Christian converts cutting off ties to their family that do not convert, or forcing their family to convert. And if they don't convert, they're cut off completely. And also, friends too. It just completely alters the personality, their goals, and their activities that they held before they decided to join this group. And they end up feeling like there's no other life outside of this particular cult. That there's no other way to live, there's no other way to be. And not only does that turn them into a true believer, but they also, and as a result of this brainwashing and being isolated, they also many of them become outright missionaries as well. So that is why I hold that Christianity is a cult, just as much as some of these other New Age cults that we see.
Okay, yeah, New Age cults are very common. And if I might just ask, you mentioned about using the cults, using the mind-altering practices. Now, is it common to all cults? And well, what is the process? How do they try reforming the convert's thought, or how do they bring emotional control? You just mentioned it briefly, but could you just elaborate on this a little bit more?
Yes. I don't know if you've heard of the BITE model. This is a model that was developed by a survivor of the Mooney cult that was based in the US. He formed this model. The BITE stands for B, behavior, I, information control, T, thought control, and E, emotional control. I'll give you an overview of what all of these are.
Once again, B, you said?
Behavior control.
Behavior control. And I for?
With I as in I, information control, then T,
Okay.
thought control, then E, emotional control.
Okay. That's
so
interesting.
Yes. I'll give you an overview of what all of these are, starting with behavioral control. So with the behavioral control, it involves promoting dependence and obedience on the leader. Since Jesus Christ is not alive, even though the cult is mostly based around him, the behavior and with the dependence will be on a pastor instead, who serves as a figurehead for Jesus. And second is modifying behavior with rewards and punishments. So initially when a convert joins, they are love bombed, meaning they're showered with praise and love from all the members. So they're made to feel welcome. and that serves as a reward system. Punishment could be the long work hours, or making them feel ashamed and guilty if they have any doubts about what they are getting into, or if they want to leave leave Christianity. Number 3 is dictating when and where they can live. And as I mentioned before, they're often encouraged to cut out those who do not convert, like their family and friends. And that might also involve asking them to move into like a housing colony that's mostly Christians, to further isolate them from who they used to know. Number 4 is restricting or controlling sexuality, meaning that the group controls who they can have a relationship with, and of course who they can eventually marry, and also controls what is acceptable to them. In Christianity, LGBTQ people are not welcome at all. There are many scriptures that are against them and are often cited as to why they are prejudiced against the LGBTQ. 5 is controlling clothing and hairstyle. So with that, you see that I'm wearing a bindi, I'm wearing jewelry. Married women might wear the Mangal Sutra. Very often in certain Christian sects, that's not allowed. The stricter they are, the less is allowed. And often even women are told to wear something completely bland, like all white, nothing colorful like what I'm wearing right now. And of course, certainly no bindi, no botu, nothing like that. No, that wouldn't be allowed. And
Okay.
yes. 6 would be regulating how much you eat and what you drink. Although I've seen with Christians that anything goes. They don't have any dietary restrictions. A lot of them eat meat and are not restricted in what meat they can eat. But with other Christian sects, though, they restrict what you can and cannot eat and drink. 7, they often deprive you of the 8 hours of sleep that we generally need to be fully rested. And they do so as a way to make you susceptible to the leader, to the group, and do what they ask you to do, tell you to do, rather. 8 would be financial exploitation. As I mentioned, there's the 10% tithe that Christians knew and established are coerced into giving from their income. Then 9 would be restricting leisure time and activities. And then finally, oftentimes in cults, including many Christian sects, there's this requirement to seek permission for major decisions. I'll give you an example from my life. I was very restricted in what I could do when I was forcefully converted into the Christian sect that I was in, Seventh-day Adventist. When I became one, I was restricted in what jobs I could do. I couldn't do any homework when I was in school during those times, and I had a lot of it. I also could not get a job that required me to work on weekends, which included Saturday. For most Christians, their day of rest is Sunday, but for my sect, Seventh-day Adventist, it was Saturday, and I could not get a job where I would be working and doing something ungodly on that day. So it made things very difficult for a long time. So that's behavioral control. Information control, some examples of that include withholding information and distorting information. So oftentimes when pastors give sermons in church, they will only use certain Bible passages that suit their needs. They'll only have like the nice passages, but they won't have the ugly or vile ones. And also, if anyone has any questions, which they're discouraged from asking anyway, the pastor will not directly answer those questions. Like, for example, someone might come across information that certain passages in the Bible were added much later. They're called interpolations. And this is out there, and this is widely available. But if they were to approach their pastor or another peer in the church, then it wouldn't even be addressed, and they would be shamed for even seeking that information. And going along with that, there is members are forbidden from speaking to ex-members of the church. So when someone leaves the church, they're cut off from that community, and people that are in the church are discouraged from having anything to do with them anymore, because they don't want these members to leave. And oftentimes when ex-members come out in public, like I have, and make videos and speak out in public, they're often with church members will go out and troll these critics. I see them in my videos all the time. I see that in my Twitter, with my social media handles all the time. And this happens to others as well, like Esther Dhanraj, Mary Suresh Iyer, so many others that have come out. Not just in India, but also ex-Christians in the rest of the world. So they divide information into insider doctrine versus outsider doctrine. So as part of discouraging and withholding information and information seeking, they will have sanctioned information sources that people can refer to. If going along with that, they'll also use gaslighting. So gaslighting means getting someone to distrust their memory or their thoughts. And that is a way of confusing people and discouraging them from seeking out further information. They don't have the clarity to do so. And going along with that can also have people confessing their thoughts or their activities. In the Catholic Church, perhaps you might know, they have people confessing to the priest sometimes every day, sometimes every week. It really varies. And then the priest will tell them to say Our Father or Hail Mary to absolve themselves of all the bad deeds that they've done. But this information can also be used to blackmail people into staying submissive. And they also encourage individual members of church to spy on each other and report to higher ups if they notice anything that deviates. Yeah, they do that.
Okay.
Yeah. Thought control, that is, some of it I've covered before, but thought control includes this us versus them dichotomy. You can trust us, the others are enemies. And thought control can also include changing a name. So some Christian converts might change their name to something out of the Bible, like David or Ruth or something like that. They don't always keep their original name, although some do, as some of you may know, some do. They keep their name and their caste name as well to avail themselves of benefits. They also start to shape thought by shaping language, using loaded language and language that's unique to the cult to shape people's thoughts. Thought control involves the mind control, like what I'd mentioned before, people speaking in tongues or acting in a frenzy every time the pastor touches them. You've seen those videos, the so-called faith healers. Yes.
That sounds rather bizarre, but
yeah, it is. Yes. And then going along with thought control is only allowing positive thoughts. You're only supposed to say positive things about everything, especially the cult. They use that to stop people from thinking negative thoughts. It's a form of thought stopping. And going along with that, leads them to reject rational thinking, reject doubt, or any sort of critical thinking whatsoever. Emotional control is very, very effective. It involves instilling phobias of questioning or leaving the group. And it labels certain emotions such as doubt or worry, even about something as benign as exams. You're only supposed to be positive. All these negative emotions are labeled as evil. And they teach emotion stopping techniques to fight against those negative emotions, and also to discourage homesickness, regret, or anger. And anytime someone feels that, they're led to feel ashamed of it or guilty of it. Then, going along with that, they give positive reinforcement with the love bombing, with showering you with love and praise. Emotional control can also involve threatening your family, especially if they have also converted along with you, threatening that they will come to harm if their family member leaves, and also shunning if you leave and no one else has. That means no one is allowed to talk to you, even if they are your immediate family. And teaching this sort of learned helplessness that, if you leave, you're not going to find any happiness or peace outside the group. So that's the bite model, and that is how they, control you and form your thoughts and control you emotionally.
Well, that sounds like a sophisticated mafia template.
Yes, indeed,
So
indeed.
I might say that.
Yes.
Is it common to all the groups, or it's only some of them that have this kind of model?
It's practiced to varying degrees among the different Christian sects. Some are not quite as controlling, while others are very much controlling. Though, where we see a lot of missionary activity, those groups are high control groups that meet the cult criterias. Like, for example, we see a lot of activity by Pentecostals in India. I would consider them a cult. I'd also consider some evangelical sects cults as well. Before, centuries ago, the Roman Catholic Church also operated that way, but nowadays I suppose they feel they're so established that they don't need to be quite like that anymore.
Okay. Can you just rate them on the degree of ferocity of control? You say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, something like that.
Okay.
Especially with context to India.
So in the context of India, I'll give you a breakdown of the makeup of Christian sects in India. So officially, we know.
Before I just get a little bit, because I have to get one more question to you before we go to the details of these different sects.
Oh, sure.
So I'm just curious about how you would grade 1, 2, 3. Then we go to the details later, because I still have to ask you the what is called these sins and pious deeds and things of those kinds.
Oh, sure. Well, like I said, different sects have varying degrees of control of their members. The Roman Catholic Church, I would say, now sits at a 2 or 3, although there's lots of variation within the Roman Catholic Church as well. Some higher control sects include the evangelicals. They are the ones that are sending missionaries over to countries, including India, and also training missionaries in India as well. I would consider them a high control group. There are other smaller sects within Christianity, such as the Jehovah's Witnesses I mentioned earlier. There are 5. They're very much a cult. They very much have high control of their members. I interviewed an ex-Jehovah's Witness, and he would tell me what they would do. So if anyone was caught doing anything that was disapproved of by the Jehovah's Witnesses, they would be visited by a council of elders. and told to stop what they were doing. Otherwise, they would be shunned and kicked out. So
Okay. No beheading.
no beheading. No, there's not that. Then another high control sect of Christianity is the one I came from, Seventh-day Adventist. They control what you can do on the rest day, which is Saturday for them, and also what they eat. They're the only ones that propagate a vegetarian diet, although it's very different from the vegetarian diet that all Indians are used to. And they're also taught not to have anything to do with other Christians as well, including marrying them.
Okay. That's
Yeah.
interesting.
My mother is actually a Christian. She was raised in the Methodist sect, which is not as controlling. But when she decided on the Seventh-day Adventist sect, she had to get herself baptized again, as if she was converting from another religion to the Seventh-day Adventists. That's how high control they are. They're very much a 5. Then there's also the Mormons. Latter-day Saints is also what they're called. They would be a 4 or 5, and they have a well-oiled machinery where they require their male and female members to be missionaries for a period of 2 years. It's like doing military service, and they're sent to many countries abroad, including India. All of their members are required to do this. So members that they convert in India and elsewhere outside of the US, they too are told to travel and to other countries and act as missionaries.
Okay. So if I might just ask you a personal question.
Oh, sure.
You said that you converted earlier and then you got into Sanatan. But you say your mother was Christian. So can you just give us a little background?
Yes. So my mother is a Christian. She was born in India, and she is a third-generation Christian. Her grandparents, my great-grandparents, they were converted during British times, either by British missionaries or American missionaries, to the Methodist sect. And she met my father, who was a Hindu, and they both emigrated to the U.S., where I was born, and I have one younger brother as well. For some time, we were not raised in any religion, any of them, but it was only later that my mother decided we needed to be baptized Christians, otherwise we would not be saved, so to speak.
That's the greatest superstition.
Yes, so I should explain. When I say saved, many Christians believe that Jesus Christ will save us from our sins because we are born with...
Then we come to the concept of sin. That's very important in Christianity. Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So you could probably take that up as well.
Oh,
yes.
yes.
You explain this.
Yes. So in Christianity, sin is not just merely bad acts. It's not just pop like we have the concept we have in Sanatan Dharma. Sin involves just being born. Christians hold that every person that is born with what is called the original sin. And the concept goes, Adam and Eve were created by the Christian God, Yahweh, and they lived in the Garden of Eden. And when they were told they could eat from any tree they wanted, and except for one, the tree of knowledge of life and the tree of knowledge of good and evil. But one day Eve was tempted by a talking snake, and she ate the fruit. Then she shared that fruit with Adam. Then they became aware of themselves. They became aware that they were naked, and they started to look for leaves to cover up their sensitive areas. Then Yahweh noticed all of a sudden, and he found out that they had eaten from that tree, that forbidden fruit. And as a result, he exiled them from the Garden of Eden, and he cursed all of humanity to have been born with that original sin. And it was centuries later that this man Jesus was supposedly born not through with the usual way that all humans are born. He was immaculately conceived in his mother's womb.
The virgin birth.
Yes, yeah, the virgin birth. And because of that, he was said to have been sinless and offered as the perfect sacrifice for all of humanity's sins. And it is through Jesus that we are all saved if we accept him, if we convert to Christianity. That's the premise. That is why they are so aggressive, why missionaries are so aggressive in converting people, because they believe they are saving all of humanity from punishment. If we do not accept Jesus for the sacrifice, for saving us from our own sins, including just being born, then we would go straight to eternal torment in hell. It'll be fire and brimstone.
I was told by
forever.
Esther that even the hell and heaven concept is actually only in Christianity and not in the original Bible.
Yes, the Jewish belief is slightly different, actually. From what I understand, they don't believe in eternal torment. They just believe that if they are not, absolved of their sins, then they'll just be away from God, from Yahweh. And I'm not quite certain on what their position is on what Adam and Eve did, if they believe in the original sin, that we are born with it, so to speak. But with the early Christians basically took the Jewish belief and it morphed it. It evolved over the years to something that's unrecognizable they would certainly be unrecognizable to the early Christians who are of Jewish origin. It's just funny how it came about and how far these beliefs are from each other. But yes, only Christianity believes in eternal heaven and eternal hell.
Yeah, Islam also does, yes.
Oh, that is true. Yes.
So that is that concept of sin, and that is what they go and parade. Now, might I ask, why did you come back to Sanatan? What was in the Christianity that you did not like?
Well, this is a long story, than one that I've told on many platforms. But as soon as I was baptized into Seventh-day Adventist denomination, I was very uncomfortable with it. I struggled with it greatly. I struggled with the prohibitions first on not doing anything that was considered ungodly on Saturday, which is their rest day. And I also started to read the Bible a lot more. I've read it front to back, and I started to have questions about what was in the Bible. Like I had questions on the creation story, for example. God created the earth. Yahweh created the earth in 6 days and rested on the seventh. But I knew from science that the earth was that it was a longer creation process. Many Christians believe that the earth is 6,000 years old. However, science will tell us that it's billions of years old. And I had questions about that, and I was told by my pastor that to lean not on my own understanding. This is a verse from the book of Proverbs. It's to paraphrase, you're just supposed to trust Yahweh and lean not on your own understanding. That's part of that thought control to discourage any sort of critical thinking that I'd mentioned earlier. And I also had questions on, I came across a passage in Revelation that basically said only 144,000 people will enter heaven, 12,000 from each tribe of Jacob, also known as Israel. So only the 12 Jewish tribes would enter heaven. And I had questions about that, and the pastor couldn't really answer my question sufficiently. And many Christians just say it's some sort of symbolic number. I actually made a video on will all Christians go to heaven. Then I got a rebuttal from some amateur Christian apologist. Then I made a longer rebuttal video to his video saying that no, it's definitely the message was mainly meant for the Jewish people. It was not meant for all people. That was the premise of the original video that I had made. Then all these with verses to propagate Christianity to all of the world were inserted, centuries later. They're called interpolations.
Okay. So that made you uncomfortable. And why the choice of Sanatan and not something else?
Well, throughout the struggle, I was also dealing with my mother, who was the one who coerced me into becoming a Seventh-day Adventist Christian. And it's a very long story, but there were,
And your father remained a Hindu, or did he also?
Yeah,
convert?
he remained a Hindu. Yes, he did.
Okay.
Yes, he never converted, and it did eventually lead to the disintegration of my parents' marriage.
Okay.
And when they divorced, I was, pressured into doing some unethical things to help my mother, who by then had no money because she had, they were now divorced and she had no income of her own. And I was coerced into doing some unethical things involving getting money from my father, money that was meant to go towards my college fees. And I was coerced into giving it to her. And she rationalized it as he's a heathen. This is my money anyway. So heathen is the Christian equivalent of the word kafir in Islam. So she justified, there's that us versus them thinking. We're not carrying out some sort of, sin against they considered heathens less than human.
Oh, yes.
So there was
exactly.
there was a long struggle with that. I did it for many years in spite of being against doing something so unethical and wrong. Then finally things came to a head, and I eventually said, I'm not going to do any more of what you want me to do, including stealing or misappropriating money. And that's when I made my final break with Christianity as well, when I also went against her. I came back to Sanatan after some time as an atheist or agnostic because I wanted to explore this vast tradition that somehow is held up in spite of all the assaults against it. And also because I just wanted to explore this thought system that does not hold that we are originally born sinners, we are originally divine. We just have been born in this earth with past karma that has clouded our vision and clouded the way we think, and which is, as a result, it leads us further and further away from enlightenment, from moksha. And I feel less pressure in Sanatan Dharma to conform to any sort of belief system in the fears of going to hell. That is why I came back. And seeing
it gives you a lot of liberty.
Yes.
And you don't have that nagging fear all the time that, okay, eternal hell, you just got one chance. That's all. And Sanatan Dharma gives you unlimited chances.
And there's also, you're allowed to question and you're allowed to develop this sense of discernment. There's the notion of neti, not this. And ever since I embraced Sanatan Dharma, I've been able to confidently say neti to any of the foundational beliefs of Christianity, like the original sin, this notion that I'll be going to hell if I don't accept Jesus, or even the nature of whether Christianity was meant for all people or not. I've been able to question everything, and that is part of that has come with being in the Sanatan fold. I don't know if I'd be brave enough to do this if I felt alone.
Okay, so that's a wonderful story, and let's round this up before we go to the audience questions.
Oh, sure.
By getting to know from you, which are the most prominent sects of Christians in India?
Yes. I've been able to do some research on it. I told you my mother was raised Methodist. However, the breakdown of Christian sects in India is, so they are officially 2.3% of the population, although in reality they could be as high as 6 to 8. Even evangelical organizations like the Joshua Project say so. But even so, it's still a small percentage of the population. Of that small percentage, 73% of Christians in India are Roman Catholic, and the rest fall into various Protestant sects. Protestant meaning non-Catholic. That is hard to get a breakdown of, but many sects that are prominent in that less than 25% Protestant include the Methodists, also Baptists. Baptists are mostly prominent in the Northeast because many American missionaries wholesale converted states such as Nagaland and Mizoram and Tripura to their sect of Christianity even after independence. In fact, the state of Nagaland is said to have the highest percentage of Baptists outside of the U.S. state of Mississippi. Other most prominent Protestant sects include even the Seventh-day Adventists, who have actually had a long presence in India going back to the British times. In recent years, however, their presence has been jeopardized. They're on the FCRA watch list, for example. So we might see more news of them more negative news about them coming out if they end up on the blacklist.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. I think we might find out a few more things from Mission Kali.
Sure. Yes, absolutely. Yes, we'll have that news.
Okay.
Other Christian denominations I should also mention. There is the Syrian Syrian Christians in Kerala. They were the first to come to India. They came peacefully. In fact, they left that area because the Roman Catholic, what now makes up the Roman Catholic Church, was becoming more prominent, and they were forcing others to conform to their beliefs. If they had any different beliefs, then they were heavily persecuted. So they came to India as a safe haven. Then later on, when the
Syrians are the akin to the Orthodox?
Yes, they are Orthodox. Yes.
The difference would be the number of books that they believe in and the number of books the Catholics believe in. Is that so?
Their Bible is certainly different from the Catholic Bible. And then the Catholic Bible is also different from the Protestant Bible. Give or take a few. Yeah, give or take the few number of books, but it's otherwise mostly the same. But the Syrian Catholics, interestingly enough, were also targeted by the Goa Inquisition. They were forcibly converted from the Syrian Orthodox sect to the Catholic sect. Then there's also there are some churches that are primarily India-based, like Church of South India, which is an offshoot of the Anglican Church. They're the largest presence in South India. And also, there's the Layman's Evangelical Fellowship. This is actually the church that Mary Suresh Iyer was part of. That was formed from Dalit members who left the Church of South India because they did not want to be treated unequally to them. So you see, there is the caste system. Yeah, there's the caste system even in Christianity as well. Yes.
Okay. That's very interesting. So, who are the most virulent in converting among all these? The Baptists?
The Baptists certainly were, and they were able to convert many northeastern states to the now more than 95% Christian. Also, increasingly, there are non-denominational organizations. They claim they don't have any affiliation with a denomination or sect, but they are fundamentalist in nature, and they're considered evangelical, and they are very active in converting people. The Joshua Project, that site I mentioned earlier, that is an evangelical site, they say that there's 3% growth in evangelical Christians in India. Yes. They give that sort of breakdown too. So
Yes,
you see a lot of
I
activity.
did a study, I found that they inflate a lot in order to get funds.
Well, there may be some of that, but they are also having they are actually having a real impact. We see a lot of activity from evangelicals in South Indian states nowadays, such as Andhra Pradesh. Andhra Pradesh officially has their official percentage of Christians is 2 to 3%, but in reality, I've heard numbers as high as 25%. So some of it may be inflationary. I know there's always this tendency among many Indians to inflate numbers, so to speak, inflate anything to look good. But the impact is still real if it's an open secret in Andhra Pradesh that the percentage of Christians is 25%.
Now, that's also very inflated, because I did have some kind of discussion on that as well. They found out that it was very badly inflated. And they do that. Both Islam and Christianity, they love inflating their numbers. And I think the Hindus, they get taken in by that. I've been telling them, because I've been involved in these census operations where I've seen that how the Islamists, they tell them to inflate their numbers. They tell their people to inflate their numbers, because the sheer numbers can be used to overawe. That's how their concept runs. I guess there's something similar to Christians. But about Andhra, I had a long discussion with people who know. And it turned out that it's about 8%, though officially it's only about 2%. So that's there. But of course, that's like this. So very engrossing, very engrossing. We are learning more and more about not just the conversion tactics. We are also learning about the different sects. We are also learning about the concepts. And I'm sure that all the people who are listening to you are also greatly benefited by that. And of course, we also need to know, but because this series is going to run long and we'll have many more sessions on this, so I think we will come to the apologetics and the counter to the apologetics. I think I'll have that with Esther Dhanraj. I think she's done a course in that. So we will discuss that as well. So it's time now to go to the question answer session. A lot of people waiting to ask you questions. The questions will be displayed on the screen, and you might like to answer them. Before that, I might request all my viewers to please like this video, share it around, and also subscribe to the channel, press the bell icon, and do the goodies to us by way of contribution. Patram Pushpam, as we call it.
Patram Pushpam.
Press the bell icon on YouTube and don't miss another update.
Islam is aggressive. Christianity is a sweet poison.
So what's your take?
Well, perhaps so, but both have a history of being aggressive. Islam and Christianity first would spread through much of the world by the sword. Christianity took over all of Europe by forcibly converting the people and forcibly suppressing the pagan religions, then later suppressing the Christian sects that went against the Roman Catholic Church. Then in 1492, the gates were wide open for exploring the rest of the world. Christopher Columbus going west to the Americas, and then Vasco da Gama going east to India and through much of, and also around Africa as well. And that led to the forceful conversion of the people in North America, South America, Africa, and also in India as well. We saw with the Goa Inquisition run by the Portuguese after they established their presence in Southwest India. It's just that Christianity over the past few centuries has sort of been neutered especially in Europe, by the formation of secular governments and this explicit separation of church and state because of their bad history of the church being the state. It's still somewhat aggressive in the U.S. It still has control in ways that are almost close to the sort of control that Islamic theocracies exert in the Islamic world, in the Islamic countries. But it's still very much aggressive. It's just not as obvious to the untrained person.
Right. Next. Namaste. Which day of the week the Christian God created space and time, and what happens to space and time after Judgment Day? Do they cease to exist?
Oh yes, the creation story. First, it first goes that God created light, but then it was only the third or fourth day that he created day and night, that space and time. And it's rather nonsensical, that the Christian creation story. But many Christians actually believe it literally. In fact, in America, in many Christian schools, this is actually taught as how the world was formed. And what happens to space and time after Judgment Day? Well, that's not really in the Bible. I would think, in their view, it would cease to exist. But again,
I think the Judgment Day is a later interpolation. Of course, something similar existed in Zoroastrianism earlier.
That is, yeah, that did come, years later. You see it mostly in the Book of Revelation about Judgment Day. But in original Jewish scripture, it's not so much there. When I say Jewish scripture, I mean the Old Testament.
Okay. Next. It is easy to counter Islam using the life of Muhammad, but how to counter Christianity using Christ? It becomes very difficult.
How to counter Christianity using Christ? Well, don't. In fact, Jesus can be if you do your research, you can use Mission Kali's website, our Mission Kali videos on social media. You'll learn that this Jesus was just a random apocalyptic preacher, certainly not the sort of figure he was portrayed as, and he's said to have encouraged people to love one another, or to blessed are the poor, blessed are the meek. But again, no one really knows if he really said those things. Scholars like Bart Ehrman have cast doubt on the authorship of the books, as well as what Jesus might have said. So the research is out there. Christ, I would say, can be considered irrelevant. He's just some random person. There was nothing certainly divine about this Christ figure. Okay.
So you could go to the Mission Kali website. I think that's a very, very good idea.
Yes, it is. It's www.missionkali.org.
That's right. In Hinduism, do you introduce a new god every year? Mr. Kamra, let me tell you something. Forget every year, one new god every year. We, Hindus, we add about 40 every minute, because we are all gods. There's something beyond you. You won't understand, because you're stuck in linear time and you're stuck in dogmatic logic. So unless you get out of that, you won't understand that. Okay? Thank you. Girish, please describe about heaven in Christianity.
Well, the Bible's sort of vague on what heaven is like, but it just says people will enter heaven if they have been saved, if they accepted Jesus as their savior, and they will constantly be circled around Yahweh, the Christian God, and will be constantly praising him all the time, saying, "Holy, holy, holy." Then they will also be up in heaven judging those that were left behind to be judged on Judgment Day, and they will send all of those people to hell. Later Christian writers have also added to that by saying that when Judgment Day comes, the believers in heaven will be watching the people in hell being eternally tormented forever and ever and ever. But it is by and large very vague, very vague.
All right. Okay. Next. Arun Gupta, Namaste, ma'am. Have you heard of the American actress Leah Remini's life in Scientology and Tom Cruise's influence in the church?
Interesting. Yes, I have heard the story of Leah Remini, who is I think she came from an Arab Christian family, and then she was somehow became a Scientologist. Yes, I have heard that story. In fact, when I was a Christian, my interest in cults grew from my interest in Scientology, and later I connected the dots to realize that Christianity is not much better than cults like Scientology.
All right. Next. Difference between Allah and Yahweh.
They're pretty much the same God in character. Muhammad must have heard many stories from, Jewish and Christian travelers, and that is how he basically plagiarized and copied the stories that he heard in his so-called revelations. So, Allah is very much the same character as this Yahweh.
Rakeshwari from Canada. Mayaji, you are a courageous one. I wish you all the best. In India and the West, do these cults get along with each other, or are they hostile to each other also?
No, by and large, sects don't have much to do with each other. In fact, for many years, a Baptist couldn't marry a Methodist, a Catholic couldn't marry a Protestant, or they couldn't have anything to do with each other. They didn't want to have anything to do with each other because they, believed that other groups were, were false. They were teaching false teachings from the Bible. And there's always been that separation between them. If they do get along, they often get along outside of the context of the church, or they just don't bring it up. But otherwise, there is some sort of at least low-key hostility between different sects. There's even that in India too. With Syrian Christians will not have anything to do with the Martoma sect, who will not have anything to do with the Naya sect. Roman Catholics will not have anything to do with Methodist or Baptist, or if they do, they'll ask them to convert first. So there's even that sort of dynamic even among the small number of Christians in India. They say it's 2.3%.
Okay. Next. Rakeshwari again. Is the story that you were born in sin told to you at the time of conversion, or is it broken to you afterwards?
Missionaries might tell people different things, but many missionaries will tell people that they were born sinful and that they must repent and ask Jesus to save them. That's often used to get people to convert because it taps into fear that they are damned. They're going to hell for all the things that they have not done.
They have not done.
Done and have not done.
We have not done. Somebody, Adam and Eve have done, and so we must pay for their sins. That's rather. I think that's can be our first line of defense. Why should we be going to hell Why should we be asked to be saved for something we have not done?
Right.
Deepak Guru, why do they keep on saying God bless you as their takiya kalam, even if we abuse them for some issue?
Well, perhaps they want to present a positive face. So even when someone is yelling at them, even if someone is yelling at them, telling them to stop proselytizing in the streets, they want to passively aggressively say God bless you, so as to not appear angry towards them. Well, secretly they'll say, go to hell. You're going to hell for opposing me. It's very, very insidious. It's very disingenuous.
Vinita, is it possible to live with Christianity peacefully in India, unlike Islam?
Do you want to answer that first? What do you think? You live in India. I visit whenever I can. I hope to visit more often, but you have a better idea.
Well, I don't come across Christians. In fact, I haven't come across Christians ever since I think I did only 1 year in a convent. That's about all. That's a memory. I was in 5th class. That's the only memory I have. And there also, I don't recall any proselytizing activity. It was just that there used to be a sister with all those funny gear and all that. That's about all. That's what my experience with Christians is very limited, because I was born and brought up in UP, where there aren't many Christians. And well, of course, I did my college in Calcutta, but there also I was in a cloistered hostel environment. So I didn't really come across them. So I think I'm fairly constrained in my response in that sense.
Well, Hindus for sure can live peacefully with others. And with the Sanatana Dharma is quite accommodative, and Hindus will leave Muslims and Christians to believe what they want to believe, as long as they also get that same mutual respect. Now, can Christians live peacefully in India? Well, that's going to be up to them. They have to stop this, aggressive proselytizing, especially missionaries. And they have to realize that the Sanatana Dharma, or Hinduism, as others call it, is not going to go away, and it is just as much a valid faith as theirs, and they should respect that. And they should, if they really want to be a good proponent of Christianity, they could perhaps lead by example and lead a peaceful life, instead of aggressively telling people you got to be saved by accepting Jesus. You got to be saved by accepting Jesus. They should also stop, cutting themselves off from family and friends who don't wish to convert. They should also stop, proselytizing in front of temples or even destroying them. A lot of that happens in Andhra Pradesh. And the government should also control funding that many organizations receive. I think that would help. That would help to control the worst aspects of the Christian cult.
So you actually think that if we squeeze out their funding, especially from abroad, then we can control them?
They wouldn't be quite as aggressive in proselytizing. No, I don't believe so, if they didn't have funding.
Okay. Next. Shashank Sharma, in South, Christian missionaries are converting Hindus in huge population. Why don't they work on other communities as much? They are working on Hindus. Is it our fault?
It's nobody's fault. It's nobody's fault. Christians will target whoever they want to target. It's nothing you can do about it. It's up to you how you react and resist them. The reason, though, that they go after Hindus mostly is because like I mentioned, Hindus are accommodating. They allow you to believe what they don't force anything down anyone's throat, and they'll take the time to perhaps listen to what you have to say. So they don't. So by and large, Hindus are not hostile
Yes,
to missionaries.
that's a civilizational fault, if I might say.
Yeah, it can be. Now, could missionaries have that same success if they go to Islamic communities? If they were to go to Jammu and Kashmir? If they were to go to Islamic localities that are majority Muslim? Well, I think enough people on your channel who watch your channel are aware of how the Muslims can be.
Right. Next. You have more questions? Okay, next question coming up. Just in a bit. Okay. Noshir Governor. Judgment Day is bullshit Bible. BB lie, as explained by Linda Goodman in Lexigram.
I don't know who she is. I haven't heard of her.
Okay, next. Dr. Rajswamy, if a man does a crime, he does the time. So why do Christians commit sin and scapegoat Jesus? Isn't that convenient to blame somebody else for their sins and avoid responsibility? Poor man Jesus. Suppose he was to become a Sanatani on his second coming. What is vicarious redemption? That's a good one. Vicarious redemption.
Vicarious redemption. That's the Christian premise of Jesus coming to save us from all that we do, including being born. Yes, it's not just with Jesus carte blanche is a get out of jail free pass for everything that we do, or just for being born.
Oh, yes. It happens similar to Islam, where they say that, okay, you can commit any crime, but if you are faithful in your prayer, then nothing sticks to you. So,
Yes.
And especially, of course, both of them treat the heathen or the kafir as non-human. So it's all right. So non-humans are like cattle, according to Islam. I think something similar in Bible. So they are like cattle, and cattle do not have souls. So it's all in the works. It's all fair and square if they kill you or if they mistreat you or do anything. Sean Joy, this talk succinctly explained why a lot of Christians are going atheist. But I don't understand why Hindu youth follow that path. I don't know. I'm not sure too much about Hindu, especially in North India. But I'm really amazed at the Sikhs. What's happening to them?
Oh yeah. I'm amazed by that too, because you'd think they have a strong community and a strong faith, but
I have an explanation for that too. You know what happened? What happened was this gentleman called Max Arthur McAuliffe, who actually Abrahamized this Sikh faith. And in 1905, they took away the murtis from the Golden Temple. It was all under the influence of the British, who wanted to take Sikhism away from the Sanatan Dharma. That is how this process, 1925, the SGPC was formed. And today they deny, a lot of them deny all the Sanatan content of from Sikhism. And they say, no, we are special. Of course, if you study the history of Arthur McAuliffe, you'll find how he completely I've done I think 3 episodes on Sikhism. And you would actually be surprised to find that General Dyer was actually celebrated in the Golden Temple, was offered an honor, offered a sword, and was kind of accepted as an honorary Sikh soon after the Jallianwala Bagh massacre.
Wow.
So, and they used to sing at that time. They used to sing. What is it in Hindi? It is called in Jug Jug Raj Savaya Topi Wale Da. Topi wala means the British. That the British might rule eternally. That used to be sung in Gurdwara at that time. So the British kind of Abrahamized the entire faith. So whenever you get secular and Abrahamized religion, it's a fair game for the missionaries. So I think the groundwork was done by the British in the late 19th and early 20th century. So that's my explanation of this phenomenon. Next.
And also, I just want to also say, Hindu youth might think that their path, that Sanatana Dharma is restrictive, when in actuality they might have more freedom. Maybe their parents don't convey the right understanding of Sanatana Dharma to them, so they get enamored by what they don't know. The grass is greener on the other side, and they see that Western countries are richer and cleaner and less corrupt. And they might be taken in by that Christianity, if India became Christian, then it would be less corrupt, less dirty, so on and so forth. But if you listen to ex-Christians, not just me, but others, we can tell you that, no, that's not the case. It can be even more restrictive than Sanatana Dharma.
I don't think the restriction part is the problem. It's just that this whole trope of all religions are the same, this secular nonsense that has kind of taken roots. That's the real problem. And I am on a mission to teach everybody that all religions are not the same.
They're not.
Dr. David Yadav, what is the future of Sanatana? It's shrinking? No, it is not. You don't know what is happening in the US and the West.
Yeah, there is at least an embrace of yoga. Some of it, with much of what is taught in the US, yoga, it's not explicitly Hindu, but that's that in and of itself can be considered a victory, even a small one. Christians.
Anshul Sharma, Christians in Kerala have good percentage. They also cry love jihad. What is the reason that Christian girls convert to Islam despite being a part of this cult?
Yeah, I've noticed that, and that's very strange. That the Christians are losing ground to the Muslims in Kerala, and that many are getting caught up in this love jihad. Yeah, that's very puzzling. Well, the reason they end up converting to Islam is because Muslims tell the spouse, the fiance, male or female, to convert because they won't. They only will accept a marriage to a Muslim. Even for someone that's someone of the book, Christians are considered people of the book in Islam.
Quite right. Next. Pratik Karambe, upper caste also open to Dalits in South India, so they get converted. What's your take?
Oh yeah. I get that the caste was used as a way to exploit the fault lines and get people to convert, and it still is.
The Dalit atrocity literature.
Yeah, Dalit atrocity literature. And yeah, that may have been true. There might have been more discrimination in the past, but nowadays it may not be so, except in some pockets of India. So Dalits are taken in by this lie that they will achieve equality if they convert to Christianity, because Christianity is supposed to have no caste. But in reality, there is. There's division among sects. The sects often don't have much to do with each other because they believe the other sect is false. Then within sects, with some people will still bring in their old caste discrimination, and they won't have anything to do with so-called lower caste members. I told you Layman's Evangelical Foundation was formed that way because they were Dalit members in the Church of South India, and they formed this Layman's Evangelical Foundation to get away from the discrimination they were experiencing. So by and large, converting to Christianity will not promise it. There's no equality promised. It's just a lie. It's just a lie. Any reform of caste discrimination has to happen within the Sanatan fold. And I think it is.
Next. Okay, so that brings us to the end of this episode. All the questions are over. So I can formally thank Mayaji. It was a wonderful session to be here with you. And we will, of course, be carrying on with this series for a longer time. And I think we'll have 5 or 6 more sessions in this series. So thank you very much. Thank you all viewers. And that's how we sign off. And our usual, Jai Hind, Vande Mataram.
Vande Mataram.